Hey, Slick Talkers, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And I know that if you love this show, you'll also love my morning show called Good Morning Hospitality with my co hosts Michael Golden and Brandy Canali, as we spend 30 minutes every Monday morning to dive into the industry's top latest news and trending topics. So go check it out on wherever you find your podcasts at Good Morning Hospitality. And you can live stream with us on Monday mornings on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. Now, I hope you enjoy this episode.
So, I mean, there are some things within that very much directly translate into the guest experience. So, we want to be sort of have this communication, if you like, within the team that is, in using the kind of the platform that suits us. It's the time that suits us, and it's in the tone and the language and all that kind of stuff. So, obviously we want that internally, and we want that to be delivered in exactly the same kind of way to the guests as well. We don't want to have this one size fits all approach, because we're all different. We want the guests to trust us and be assured that we're going to deliver what we say we're going to do when we say we're going to do it. And that's very much exactly, we all understand that sometimes things change, but we've just got to be clear about that and trust each other.
Welcome to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast where we discuss all things hospitality, hotels, and business. You can find us online at slicktalkthepodcast.com and on every podcast listening platform.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and today I have a great opportunity. I guess you could say we don't have much in-person meetings anymore. So a great opportunity to sit down with Adam Rowledge, who is based out in the UK, and talk about what it's like to build an award-winning team, especially in the hotel sector. I think this is something that's highly needed. So Adam, my friend, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's great to have the opportunity to speak to you, and it would be nice to have flown over and done this in person, but we'll stick with Zoom for now.
I know, I was going to say 2020 really threw off all our plans, but we're here. We adapted. We're still kicking. So I would love to just kind of jump in and figure out a little bit more about you. Obviously, I got to talk to you pre-recording, but I want the audience to understand your background and how you even got started.
Sure. So really, firstly, just to get into the hospitality industry, it wasn't something I had a particular desire to do. It was something really just to earn some part-time money when I was sort of 16, to be able to go out and do the things that 16-year-olds do. So that was it really. And I didn't really want to sort of be a waiter, which is what I kind of ended up doing. I thought I was probably going to mess the orders up or sort of mess everything up basically. But my next door neighbor had a job at this hotel as a banqueting server. So she said, it's really easy. You don't have to take any orders. You don't have to carry 10 plates or do silver service or anything like that. And it just started from there really. And I gradually then moved my way working around the different departments in that particular hotel. But it was still very much set on my career. I had a career in sports science planned, which is what I studied at university. But throughout my time at university, spent more time working in hotels than I did doing my studying, and basically that was it. Followed my career in hospitality and went from strength to strength.
So what was you started in food and beverage? Did you work your way up to front of house, like front desk, or what was kind of like the stepping stone to then growing as a career?
So I started off working in banqueting, and I did that for 2 years whilst part-time while I was at college. College to us, not college to you. Before I went to university, and then did kind of a shift here as a concierge, helping out, luggage porter, that sort of thing, covering reception, and then I had a gap year between college and university where I worked in reception as a supervisor, and then worked in the accounts department. Got progressed into a role with the group accounts, which was quite cool. So I was traveling around a few of the different hotels and chasing people for money who owed us money. There's a group of about 15 hotels, something like that. And then did part-time reception for 3 years in a boutique hotel in Birmingham when I was at university, and then went into reception supervisor, reception manager, front of house manager, rooms division manager, deputy general manager, general manager, and that then led me to doing what I'm doing now as well, which I'm sure we'll probably talk about it a little bit later on. But yeah, very it's kind of sequential, but still a good mix of food and beverage and rooms division, and but yeah, quite so mostly in boutique hotels or individual hotels. I think the biggest company I worked with had about 18 properties, something like that. So yeah, not the kind of the big corporates, Marriott's, Hilton's, IHGs of the world.
That's really fascinating. And I think the way we kind of got introduced was through the Hospitality Mavericks podcast. So
Yes.
Michael Kingsinger, he had you on the show, and he and I are good friends. We've become really close over this last year. And so I remember you guys were talking about a certain hotel that you were working for on his podcast. Can you explain a little bit more on what that whole conversation was based on?
Sure. So I think, when I was on Michael's podcast, which I think was probably one of the first ones I ever did, we filmed it in one of the bedrooms at the hotel I was working at the time, which was Georgian House Hotel, which is near Victoria in London, for anyone who's been to London previously. And it's a 60-bedroom family-owned hotel. It was built by the great-great-grandfather of the current owner of the business. Wow. So real kind of family heritage. And although it's a boutique hotel, it's still quite traditional in design. It's kind of listed building, but the rooms are sort of modern in a kind of up-to-date kind of way, but not in a funky boutique. It's so modern it doesn't even work properly kind of way, which I find with a lot of boutique hotels. So yeah, really, really lovely property, but it has what I would call kind of the normal rooms, if you like, and then it has a few themed rooms, which are called wizard chambers. So they were really inspired by a lot of guests who were coming to stay at the hotel and then going on the Warner Brothers studio tours and Muggle walking tours and all of these things that Harry Potter fans do, and they started doing the theatre show as well. But during the time that I was there, that kind of came later. So they started off with one of these, then it quickly moved to 2, and then it went to 4, and then during the time that I was there, because I unfortunately can't take any of the credit for this fantastic idea, we expanded that from 4 to 7. And started doing a wizard afternoon tea and really started to build that whole kind of wizard brand, wizard chamber brand at the hotel. So that was quite interesting. Yeah. I'm not really a Harry Potter fan per se, but I think you don't have to be to appreciate what has been done in terms of the concept and to build that out. I had some fantastic people working in the team at Georgian House who were massive muggles, so to speak. So they were really able to deliver that in terms of the guest experience. I kind of stayed back a bit from that. But actually there's some things that I've kind of taken from that in terms of the speaking that I now do as well. So it's actually, as I've got into it a little bit more and, my daughter who's 6, nearly 7, she now wants to start watching the film. So I'm going to have to get into it 2 years after having left the hotel. But,
yeah, just take her to that hotel and just be like, all right, this is pretty much it. Like, get ready.
Well, can't do that at the moment, unfortunately, as we record this, sadly. But the hotel's I'm not out of bounds, should we say? But I'll look forward to. She has been to the hotel before, actually. I remember it was, and because it was a family-run hotel, that was one of the great things about it. We built a fantastic culture there. And there was one day when I think my wife had to take my son to some kind of appointment for something in London. I can't remember what it was now. But I said, just fine. Alice can stay with me at the hotel. So we just went into one of these. It was actually one of these wizard rooms, and she just kind of sat there happily, doing whatever she was doing, and I was doing my work. I had the team in there for a quick morning briefing meeting, and just sat there and enjoyed the experience of being in the hotel. So I'm sure she'll love going back to the wizard chamber rooms once we've watched the films.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and you've talked about just briefly building a good culture and a fantastic culture inside a hotel. And when I was checking out your website long time ago, like months ago when we first got introduced, was you have a lot. I've seen a lot of awards and recognition given towards you and the hotels you've worked at and the teams and overall just winning the best GM awards and all stuff like this. So I want to kind of jump into kind of that aspect of, the theme of the episode is building a award-winning team. So for you, can you kind of dive into that side of everything? Because I don't think I've seen one person who's been at all these hotels win so many awards. This is kind of a new thing for me to see. So I guess I'm kind of curious to see your secret sauce when it comes to that.
Well, I suppose there's two things. One is the winning of the awards, and the other thing is the how we do it. So, I mean, one thing's for sure, you've got to be in it to win it. And I know there's a lot of great people doing things in hospitality who are doing award-winning, worthy things, but not necessarily focusing on those. And the reason, for doing that, some of the reasons. One was it's great for the team. It obviously gets them really excited and motivated, and real good feel factor in the hotel when we're recognised for the great things that we're doing. But also, it was really part of our sort of talent attraction strategy, because as an independent business, and especially in London, when you've got so many hotels, hundreds of hotels, and especially competing against some of the more established brands, and that was something we were really doing to sort of stand out, if you like, and show people that we were a great employer. And we won some great awards. So there's one for best industry and education partnership. So we were really passionate about working with universities and helping to support them to develop the future hospitality workforce. And we had some great success in actually recruiting people straight out of some of the universities we work with, which wasn't necessarily the aim. It was really just it was something we believed in. But that actually was very effective for us, as well as more at grassroots level with younger people in schools, just making them aware of it. Because for a lot of people who don't go really to restaurants, and certainly when I was younger, we didn't go to restaurants. We occasionally went to McDonald's for a birthday party, but we didn't have the restaurant culture that we have now, and maybe stay in a hotel occasionally on holiday, but not really aware of it as an industry. So that was one really key one. And then later we won awards for best management development strategy, sort of top 30 in the best places to work in hospitality for a few years running. And it was great for me to be able to support some of our team members. So we had a front of house manager who won front of house manager of the year award, and so on as well. And as you say, I was fortunate to be Independent Hotelier of the Year and General Manager of the Year awards and whatnot. So that was the kind of the winning of it, really, I suppose, was part of our strategy. It was something we were specifically aiming for, as well as good for the team to be part of that. And how do we do it? Well, I could write a book of that. Well, as you know, I am. But there's a lot that goes into it, and it's really about kind of supporting the team and being true to what you do. So I believe there are 7 kind of key lessons, if you like. That's what I talk about in my keynote speaking and what the book's all about. And those kind of 7 lessons really are around values. So having the right values for your organization, making sure that your team really can buy into those values, and that you're living them every day, and you're kind of reinforcing them through what you do. The talent, so the people, having the right people, bringing them into the business, how you find them, all of that sort of thing. Learning, so how we learn together, how we train, how we educate ourselves, how we enhance our knowledge so that we can broaden our horizons and develop new opportunities. Communication and trust, which work very much in tandem. Sort of talking to people in the way they want to have conversations and have those interactions, rather than just being very prescriptive in the way that we communicate, making sure that's very proactive, constant engagement for people, and you've built that sort of trusting environment so the team can all really trust each other and work well together, and you create that space where they can sort of make suggestions without feeling that that's not the right thing to do, and are free to make mistakes, and we all learn together as part of that process. And then the final 2 things really are around kind of developing leadership capabilities, and around supporting the well-being of the team, and whether that's mental well-being, physical, social, or financial well-being, because everyone has has problems in their lives and things that they need support with. And I think we recognize that, the more that we could do to help them with that, the things even outside of out of work, one, it's the right thing to do to help each other and look after each other in society. And two, how can we really expect them to achieve their potential in the workplace if they've got this baggage that they're carrying around? So those are the kind of the ingredients of the secret sauce, as you put it. And every organization has different needs with those sorts of things. So really it's about engaging with the team to understand the needs, and then achieving the right balance of supporting them with those needs, and the demands that we're placing on them as well.
Oh, you brought up a lot of good points, and I think
that was a bit of a monologue. Sorry about
that. no, it's totally okay. I totally I agree with everything you're saying. And are you guys looking at, like, if you take care of the team first, because you're talking about there's 7 things, values, right people, learning together, communication and trust, development, leadership, and support and well-being. Do you feel like if these are the pillars for taking care of a good team and having a good team and award-winning team, do you feel like that carries through the guest experience and the way the hotel operates? Is that what makes it successful, or is it an internal success that you guys measure that off of?
So, I mean, there are some things within that very much directly translate into the guest experience. So, we want to be sort of have this communication, if you like, within the team that is, in using the kind of the platform that suits us. It's the time that suits us, and it's in the tone and the language and all that kind of stuff. So, obviously we want that internally, and we want that to be delivered in exactly the same kind of way to the guests as well. We don't want to have this one size fits all approach, because we're all different. We want the guests to trust us and be assured that we're going to deliver what we say we're going to do when we say we're going to do it. And that's very much exactly, we all understand that sometimes things change, and we've both experienced that with the schedule for this recording, but we've just got to be clear about that and trust each other, and communication obviously feeds into that, with the way that we deliver things, and stay true to our values. And one of the things that I really encourage organizations to think about in terms of finding talent is there seems to be a sort of a disconnect between the way that we try to attract consumers to come into our hotel and the way that we recruit people. It's like it's 2 different processes, but it's exactly the same thing. It's all marketing, and there are a few hotels that are really embracing the same methodologies that we would use to attract. There's no booking.com, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your views, for attracting talent. But some of the stuff like really targeted Facebook ads, for example, or Instagram ads to attract people, the way that we actually change our messaging, change our tone, emphasize different benefits, for example, to target different market segments from a sort of talent attraction perspective, in the way that we do that for guests. So I think there's some sort of direct, and then others which are perhaps a bit more indirect.
Oh, that's awesome. And so there goes into a few things of I love the communication and trust aspect. What makes good communication? Is it constant communication? Is it using your words properly? Is it body language? Like when you guys are talking about communication, what was, obviously it's a little bit different with COVID because a lot of us aren't in person anymore, but what's the key, like, successful communication methods that you guys were practicing?
So I think really there's nothing that I could say to what we did this, and you absolutely will achieve phenomenal success if you go away and do this as well. Again, linking back into what we were just talking about, personalization is one of these kind of key things that we sort of put on a pedestal in terms of the guest experience. But really trying to again bring this back and say we should be having parallels really with the guest experience and the employee experience. So whilst it can be a bit more difficult on a day-to-day basis working with the same people to personalize things in the same way that we would do to a guest, we just need to understand those people. And there's lots of ways that you can do that, whether it's by doing training to understand different personality types and all those things, but really it's just a case of having conversations and understanding each other, and knowing that after you've done a day of back-to-back recordings, you don't want to have a conversation. At the same time as, if you need that office time to focus on a particular project, that's the case, and you're not to be disturbed during that time. Or some people like to say, interrupt me and tell me what you want to do. Don't just stand there. Other people say, if you can see I'm busy, come back and do it. So it's really just a case of understanding those people. As you in a smaller hotel, that's easy for me as a general manager to do for everybody, and you just sort of scale that up really in a bigger hotel. So rather than do it for the whole hotel, maybe focus departmentally. So I think it's really just a case of understanding that on an individual basis. Some people love technology, but we worked in a hotel where quite a few people didn't have smartphones, which if you said that to a lot of people, they'd think, what are you talking about? Everybody has a smartphone. But obviously, whilst there are some fantastic tools that you can use on a smartphone, if someone doesn't have them, then you're actually making the situation worse. So some people prefer a good old-fashioned notice board. In terms of how often, one thing I would say is definitely not all the time. There are very few people who can cope with that, and even if they think they can cope with that, the reality is that they're not then switching off, and it's too much. So you've got to strike the right balance, and that's one of the things that has become really, really important during these times. Especially with a lot of employees being furloughed, communicating with them is really, really important. But the last thing they want when they are really struggling to deal with possibly homeschooling, worries about having enough money, and whether they will have a job in a few months if this continues, and all of that sort of stuff, is constant updates about what's happening at the hotel. It can actually increase anxiety, obviously. So the messaging is really important, as well as the regularity and the methodology as well. So there seems to be a WhatsApp group for everything these days, but exactly, exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But when you've got that on your personal WhatsApp, then I know you can mute things, but you still know it's there. So do we need to be careful about that? Some people prefer that because they don't want to have to go another separate app where they're kind of thinking every time that goes off, it's definitely work. So it's really about talking to your team, understanding what's right for them, and having different options available to people to suit their needs. We all have different needs.
Totally. And I love that you just said that last part, different needs, because what I learned as a hotel manager during my time was like, I hired some great housekeeping staff. I hired some great maintenance guys. I hired some great front office, receptionist, front desk, whatever you want to call them. But the one thing I learned a lot was when I was like, I interviewed this one person, and let's say she killed the interview. She was great. Or actually, I'll use a different example that I like better. So I interviewed someone for housekeeping. She was very conversational in the interview, very personable, likable person. You could just tell she was a great candidate. She's had a great experience and great references. Like, she checked all the boxes. And I noticed that when she got into cleaning rooms and like doing the actual job of housekeeping and turning over, the laundry and all the other stuff, she was just saying hello and, talking to the staff and like her team and like being nice to guests and like actually going out of her way, instead of being like the grumpy housekeeper pushing a cart in the hallway. She was actually like going to conversate with them and like ask them about their stay. And is there anything about the room that I could help you with? Or like, she was just really going above and beyond. And I realized in that moment, kind of like a light bulb moment, I was like, she is not supposed to be in housekeeping. She does okay. Like, she didn't have any issues with her rooms, or, whenever I inspected things, or great work. No complaints. But it's like, she's really not like thriving in housekeeping. She was just average, like great quality work, but didn't do anything above and beyond, other than she was really personable and loved the guests. So that's when I was like, all right, we have to realize that I also kind of saw like after a while, she kind of started declining in her performance, just because I think you could tell she just wasn't in the right spot. And so we put her into front desk, and she killed it. She was one of our best agents. I remember having reservations come through, even on OTAs like Booking Expedia, saying I would love it if so let's say Rose was there when I checked in, like just by name reference and then stuff like that. So do you think there's I don't know, as managers, what can we do in order, like, what does it take in order to recognize that for us? Is that something that you guys even experience with your hotel with some staff, like saying, hey, they're a great team member, but they're just not in the right position, that they're not thriving here? Is that something that you guys kind of focused on when you were curating these teams and getting award winning? Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
very much so. And because it was such a small hotel, there was limited options for progression in terms of a typical hierarchical, sort of increase in salary and role responsibility. But actually, that's not necessarily what people always want. So very much trying to promote, gaining those different learning experiences by working in different departments. And similarly, had some team members who worked in housekeeping and then moved into front office, but also people who perhaps, as similarly, were perhaps underperforming in a certain department. Saying, okay, well, where do your skills lie, and what can we do? And just experimenting and helping them to find something which suits them, because there's so many roles in hotels that there's something for every personality type and every skill set. Really, and actually can be quite often, even if you're not necessarily passionate about working in hotels or hospitality, but your accountancy is your thing, you're mad about the numbers, you could develop your career in working in a hotels, get your qualifications, and then go off to do accounting in another industry if you want to,
Or revenue management.
or move into revenue management. But
Yeah.
those kind of skill sets, and actually, if you studied a degree in accountancy, for example, paid, don't I have no idea even how much you've done, and then you do all your professional accounting qualifications, and then go and get a job, in a sort of normal accounting company, perhaps not one of the kind of big four or anything like that, but you're going to have huge debts and your earnings are going to be relatively limited. But actually, if you kind of progress through accounts, you get your qualifications paid for by the company you're working for over a few years, and repay that back in the work that you do and the loyalty that you show to them, you'll have no debt and you'll be earning probably twice as much as those people at a certain point in time anyway. So I know all of this, but yeah, that's very much something we tried to do. And actually as well, although if there wasn't necessarily a role for somebody in terms of progressions, actually getting them involved in different things in the hotel. And we had a big kind of ethos about kind of Lean and Six Sigma at Georgian House. We did a lot of work on that. So every single member of the team, a yellow belt as a minimum, we developed them in that way. And our entire strategy was kind of focused on all of these different project groups that we had running all of it at the same time. And really, we had obviously the kind of the top line strategy for the hotel, but all of the little things really being led by these project groups with people from different departments quite often. So I had a whole kind of thing about our employee recognition program and all of that sort of stuff, which I could have maybe said that's rubber stamp that, or actually I really like them to sort of just to consider that, but they're coming up with the answers, and that kind of obviously gives them that bit of ownership all over it, makes them more motivated, and that really works. That's the kind of the secret sauce. That's the one thing that you can probably take away, that I guarantee if you do that, you'll get it. But again, that's because you're talking to them on an individual basis and finding out what matters to them. And I don't care where they keep the teaspoons or what order they do the breakfast buffet in. They know what works.
Exactly.
They're the experts on that. So yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I guess we kind of mentioned it, and I've been trying to see if I can go the whole day without bringing up COVID, but you just can't. And that is obviously the pandemic, COVID-19. It's been the focus over the last 11 to almost 12 months. So how can hotels, how can they be able to keep their teams performing their best during a pandemic? Like, I know it's dependent on market. It's dependent on where the hotel is based. Obviously the UK is not doing so hot right now for travel. There's some places in the US that are doing okay. They're more like rural destinations. They're not close to big cities. They're kind of like the outskirts of, let's say New York or California or whatever big populated city there is, or state. So what do you think hotels and hoteliers or managers or GMs or anybody could really do to help keep this going and not just have a dead stop during the middle of the pandemic?
Well, I think, I mean, first of all, it's funny, you know, when you say I've tried not so hard not to mention this subject, but it's inevitable. And that used to be Brexit, and now it's this. I think there's always going to be
Yeah.
something which is going to be like, we're trying to avoid this, but we've got to talk about it. So, I mean, it's been different at different times of the year because, you know, so we had that kind of our first lockdown here in the UK, and then, you know, this kind of summer of we had this Eat Out to Help Out offer, which you know, some of your listeners may be familiar with, and our coastal hotels and a lot of the countryside hotels, you know, booming over the summer. The staycation was really big, and certainly expect that to be the same this year as well. But the city's obviously really struggling because of the lack of inbound tourism, which, you know, I'm sure is the same for you. But
Yeah.
getting it, you know, really kind of tailoring it to what's happening in your hotel. Because obviously, but I think the key things really for me are, you know, we've got people at home who, you know, we can really develop, and, you know, that's not necessarily about saying yes, you're furloughed, but you must do these mandatory training courses, because, you know, as we said earlier, you know, everyone's got these kind of things going on that they've got to deal with. So, you know, why prescribe to everyone they've got to be online at 3:00 to do this group training session when they're, you know, trying to do homeschooling and stuff. But it's a fantastic opportunity, and it doesn't have to cost a fortune. Obviously, you know, you can book fantastic world-class, you know, people like myself who'll come in and do a speaking workshop for you, but it doesn't have to be. You know, there's so much resource out there, and the hospitality industry has absolutely been fantastic in what it's provided for free across the industry. I know that eHotelier, for example, are doing some online programs. I haven't done them. One of my good friends has just completed a lot, and there was so much, especially in the first lockdown, even just watching TED Talks and or reading articles, you know,
Podcasts.
I was just getting to that. I was building up in terms of importance, with podcasts obviously at the top. But there is, I mean, podcasts have obviously exploded, and it'd be interesting to see how many of the ones that kind of started in the pandemic still continue, but the long running ones are
trust me,
the better ones.
That's been something we've talked about on the back end of things, like Michael from Hospitality Mavericks and a few of us. Yeah, this has been a conversation part, but anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all. But you know, they are. There's one particular podcast which, you know, I found particularly beneficial, not just for me but also for the hotel, because you know, and this person's been a guest on Michael's podcast as well. But, you know, the guy whose podcast it was, he started staying at the hotel. You know, a number of his guests, you know, built relationships with them. You know, one was kind of then booking the hotel to deliver workshops and that sort of thing. And I gained so much knowledge from doing that. I was the must tune in to hear as soon as it dropped every single week. And it helped me to really move the business forward, you know, in terms of the way that we were marketing as well. So they are really valuable.
You're more than welcome to plug it in.
Yeah, so it was called the. He left his company and then started his new company. His new one is called the Supersonic Marketing Podcast.
Okay.
It's Mark McCulloch. And it was previously the Spectacular Marketing Podcast, but you know, great podcast. And, you know, similarly with you know, with Michael, who you mentioned, you know, we've got built up a good relationship, and, you know, tried to sort of do some stuff together as well just before all of this kicked off. So really, you know, valuable in terms of the people that you can meet through doing it and whatnot. So yeah, big fan of those. And obviously you can be doing them while you're doing your housework or going out for your daily 1 hour's permitted exercise or whatever it is, depending on where you are. You know, there's nothing to sort of stop you from doing that. So, you know, but all of this stuff free and really accessible for teams. So I think that's one key thing really, is, you know, take advantage of the opportunity to support teams to learn and to grow, because all of these fresh ideas, you know, if you've got 10 different people in your team and they're listening to 10 different podcast episodes, 100 podcasts worth of ideas that they can bring back into your team. How long would it take you wouldn't even do it, would you? So that's one great thing. The well-being thing is really important as well, you know, just sort of understanding them and how they want to be engaged with, you know, what are the problems that they're experiencing, and how you can possibly support them directly, but quite often it's a case of signposting, making sure that they're gaining access to any financial support that's available. Whether it's this obviously was pre-COVID, we had mindfulness workshops at Georgian House, where there was a lady called Katie Sheen, who's absolutely fantastic, who I met. I heard her speak at a conference, and she came in and ran some workshops for us. And if any of your listeners want to check her out, Katie Sheen, Soul Nutrition is her company, and I know she had a free mindfulness for anxiety workshop that she was offering for free during the pandemic as well, and she's really first class. So there's so much of this stuff that we can do to support people, but actually as well as doing that, because it's the right thing to do and we want to help our team and just engaging with them, make sure they stay up to date with what's happening, so they feel like they're not isolated. It's actually a really good opportunity to show the world that you are a great employer. So do the great stuff, obviously, but talk about it as well, and show that that's what you're doing, because we're always going to need great talent in hospitality, and you want the best people for your business. So I don't know about you, but I certainly would want to go and work for the team that show me that they're putting on mindfulness workshops, even if it's they're free, or that they're supporting teams with well-being and all of that sort of stuff. And you can just be fun as well. I'm sure you've done a million kind of Zoom quizzes and all that, all of those things, but ask them what they want.
Yeah.
Don't just say, this week we're going to be doing mindfulness. What do they want? We tried doing yoga at Georgian House. No one wanted it. I thought everyone's going to want yoga. No one was interested. But mindfulness, they were really, really popular sessions. And not only did they help people,
but those are very common in the US, which
really?
It's not what anybody wants at all, but they actually happen like too often.
Yeah, but I think the other thing, which is from and certainly probably in the first lockdown, I don't know how much this is affecting people in the second lockdown, maybe because they're kind of better, but it was really a case of actually make sure that it was very easy. You didn't have anything to do, you've got time to fill, and alcohol consumption went up, and people getting irregular sort of patterns of sleep and diet, things. It's quite easy to you're not in kind of a normal routine, and all of that stuff's really important to maintaining good well-being. And obviously it's all interlinked. If you're drinking all the time, not getting enough sleep, and you're going to feel down, and it's kind of vicious cycle. So all of these things are really important, just to kind of to share advice where people want it, or give them access to it, and help them to help themselves, really.
No, that's totally true. I totally agree. No, I think you've packed a lot into that, and I can see obviously why you're still such a passionate person in the industry. What is it that you are currently doing now because now I don't think you're with the hotel anymore, right? You're doing speaking and lectures and kind of just doing what you're just describing on the show. Where can people find this information from you?
Yeah, so I left Georgian House in July 2019, and I set up my own business already, and really working with teams to help them to create award-winning teams, as we've just been saying. So I had a fantastic first 6 months, which was kind of weird in that I went out had an amazing privilege of going out to Japan and doing some training out there for the Rugby World Cup, and went to watch France USA, actually, which was quite a good game. Wow. So that was great fun. And then I was speaking I was in New York actually, and Dubai and all that sort of stuff. And I think I went to Turkey at the end of January, and haven't set foot on a plane since I did sort of 6 months solid of being on a plane basically, and then done. But no, very much everything that I'm doing is online now, and actually has opened more opportunities up for me, because I can speak to an audience in New York in the afternoon, and then do another gig first thing in London, which would have been pretty. Well, I did do that last year. Actually, it was pretty horrific to get the red eye and then come back and do another gig in London. But so it's opportunity is there, and still very much delivering those online speaking opportunities as well as workshops. So more shorter workshops, I have to say now. I think people are which kind of makes sense. It is much harder to stay engaged for those periods of time. So half day is a kind of the sweet spot for those. And all of that is really focused around those ideas of, communication, trust, or, how to develop, your kind of well-being strategy, those sorts of things. And then, as you said, I've been doing some lecturing, so that's been quite interesting. I, did some guest lecturing when I was working at Georgian House, general manager, but working, directly with universities now, helping to develop future leaders in hospitality. Really rewarding and great to be able to share my experience with them on that front. But all of my details are on my website, which I think you're going to put out on a link very kindly with the with the podcast, rowledgeassociates.co.uk. And if anyone wants to follow me on social media, we have plenty of regular tips and stats and useful content on there as well, which is at Adam Rowledge, and really just trying to share as much value as we can to people. And there's so much information out there, and some fantastic resources, all for free. So
that's awesome. Well, no, I think you summed it up pretty perfectly for the whole audience. There's a lot of content for people that are able to pick and pull and start developing, if they're open or not open, or I think we have a pretty vast audience here with Slick Talk. So the information is just great. I think it could be applied, to any segment of hospitality. So I'm excited to go ahead.
And I think just one thing which popped in my head as well, in terms of this idea of learning and developing, obviously there is so much free resource, but one of the key things that I really try and talk to people about as well is doing the right kind of training. So we just talked now about this kind of like the idea of a half day workshop, rather than this, traditionally it was always that you're going for a full day's training. And, it can just be in bite-sized chunks. It can be 1 hour every week rather than all in one go. And something which I'm really also quite passionate about is kind of gamified training. So, that's again something which, yes, the company has to invest in to kind of put together a platform. And the one particular company that I really recommend who do that, but the results are absolutely staggering in terms of the effectiveness of that. And I had to go. I'm not a gaming type person at all. I never had a PlayStation or any of that kind of thing when I was growing up. My kids have got a Nintendo Switch, and I didn't want to play on that. It doesn't interest me. I had one demo on this thing of it was a coffee shop, and I was, I'm going to get top score on this and beat my score from last time. And how can I do this better? And making sure that I'm upselling and all that stuff. That is where the message really sticks, and the effectiveness of the training is as well. So doing the right kind of development. But we could go on and on for hours, I'm sure. But I'll leave it at that for now.
That's perfect. Well, like you said, I'll take everything in the show notes so anyone listening can have easy access right away. Adam, I just want to say thank you again for being on the show. Thank you for bringing some value and knowledge to the audience, and of course to me. I'm even learning stuff through the podcast, which is pretty awesome. I don't think many people can say that with their jobs, at least right now. So I again appreciate you for being on, and
thank you. Real pleasure talking to you. Will do.
Of course. Well, we'll talk soon. And Slick Talkers, you heard it. Click the show notes. You can find all the links in the show notes below, like I just said, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you so much for listening. We love your support and want to provide the best we can to all our listeners. So please find us online, social media, and on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast.
What's up, everybody? If you've gotten this far into the episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast, then you are amazing, and thank you so much for tuning in. We want to send you two places really quickly. If you can, check out the show notes and click the hospitality.fm link. Check out all of our other shows on the podcast network. And don't forget, if you have someone that you want to hear on the podcast, then fill out the guest fill out form so that way we can get them on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy another episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast.